Today, the question was asked about was information that you gathered from the JIPRA and SEER interrogation method shared with any other U.S. government department or agency? Your response was the DIA, which is clear, and another recipient, which was classified nature. But the question I wish to push further on that, this question, if it were asked, was the information you gathered, in what form did you convey that information to those two entities? Was it a written memorandum?
There was some written.
Yeah.
There was some written information, and they requested briefings, so we put a team together.
There is in existence a document that's in writing as to what went to these two recipients. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I believe there is.
Mr. Chairman, do we have that among our files? They classified or we don't have
Senator, I believe that there is no documentation in our possession of that. However, there is testimony in our possession, I believe, that is classified.
Is it desire of the committee then to have those documents? And perhaps
if there are such documents, of course, we've asked for documents. By the way, how many of them came in last week?
It seems to me that the record
38,000 documents were presented to us this week by the Department of Defense. So we're not sure what's in those documents, but they sure are about a year late. But putting that aside, we can't answer what is in those documents. We have not identified a document yet which contains that information, but again would reiterate that we do have testimony that our staff has obtained that is classified.
Well, then going beyond documents, did the SEER organization or JIPRA provide individuals to go and perform training?
Sir, Senator, I believe they sent a team to do briefings, instruction. I don't know that they conducted training.
Well, instructions is pretty close to training. I think they're interchangeable words.
Comes with a really good expression. I really want to use it, but I won't. Instruction and training are really different. Instruction really imparts academic knowledge, whereas training in our context implies skill sets.
Okay, then what was done? Just instruction and not skill set?
My understanding, I didn't attend the training, but some of the email stuff that I've seen, which was all on a classified net, was basic instruction and exploitation interrogations, very similar to what we provided DIA and CITF.
Was that sharing an issue that your organization sought higher authority to approve? I mean, for instance, did it go up to the Secretary of Defense?
It didn't go to the Secretary of Defense, sir, but it did go up to the flag level in Joint Forces Command.
Wait a minute. I spent 5 years in the building. I never know what a flag level is. There are flags all over. It went from where to where?
It went from JPRA headquarters to the Joint Forces Command J3, and I think into the Chief of Staff's office.
Chief of Staff of?
Joint Forces Command.
All right. Now, I'm referring to a document, 26 July 02, Department of Defense Memorandum for Office of the Secretary of Defense General Counsel. And it says, paragraph 1, unclassified, the purpose of this memorandum is to answer follow-on questions resulting from the meeting between JIPRA and OSDGC on 25 July 02. Are you familiar with that meeting?
Sir, I believe I'm talking about telephone conversations. As Mr. Schifrin said, I've never met Mr. Schifrin before today. But we did have a few conversations to try to figure out what information they wanted so we could support their request.
So the meeting consisted of a telephone conversation?
2 or 3, sir.
2 or 3 telephone calls?
Yes, sir.
But there was no gathering in a room or exchange?
No, sir, not that I recall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you're anxious to get to the next panel.
Thank you, Senator Lieberman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. Dr. Ogrisseg, I wanted to ask you whether the training we're giving our military personnel to resist interrogation techniques alters or has altered over time with the enemy or with the purpose of the interrogation. In other words, are we training people differently today because we're facing Islamist terrorists than we were, for instance, when we were facing the Soviet Union or the Viet Cong?
Yes, Senator, the training has changed. We obviously want the training to be relevant. So in order to do that, we've had to make sure that we are covering the spectrum of different types of ways that someone could be detained, either by terrorist elements, factions that we're at war with, or even with other governments that we're not at war with.
Does the goal of the interrogators, as we assume, does the goal that we assume our enemy interrogators will have alter the methods and the means of responding? In other words, it seems to me that in a lot of cases in previous conflicts, the aim, unfortunately we know about Senator McCain's experience, the primary aim of the torture he endured was to compel him to sign a confession of some kind for propaganda purposes, not for the purpose of eliciting information, as was the case that the Pentagon was seeking here. Others, unfortunately, there's some reason to believe, but the current enemy, their likely course is to put a captive on television and kill him. Does the goal alter the training, the goal of the interrogators?
It does. The way that people have been processed and detained before, in some instances, was focused on information. That's just one way that someone can be exploited by an enemy. The situation that you described, with a terrorist network, making their goal may be to make a statement, in that instance, for whatever purpose they think they're going to serve. So, you have to address that, and you cannot, within the training necessarily determine which goals, which actions that the students are going to take, because they have to make those decisions themselves.
The enemy we're facing now, the Islamist extremists, obviously have a unique both a cultural background but also a theological extremism about them. And the question is this: as Colonel Baumgartner said, when you were asked for this information about seer techniques by the General Counsel's office in the Pentagon, since you knew they were not involved in training, it was natural to assume that they may have been asking for it to employ against detainees that we had in the war on terrorism. Was there any information that you conveyed that was based on the unique cultural background of the Islamist terrorists?
Senator, are you asking me that question, or are you asking...
Either one of you who cares to answer.
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
So let me ask you this question. One form of harsh interrogation that are handling of detainees that you haven't been asked about is the use of dogs. And in some of the material I've read, from somewhere comes the suggestion that Muslims or Arabs have some special phobia or fear of dogs. I don't know whether there's any premise for that, but I take it that, did you at any point deal with that in the submission you made to the General Counsel's office?
No, Senator. That didn't. We had nothing to do with that.
Okay, Mr. Schifrin, did that ever come up in any of your search for? Let me ask this question: in trying to find additional information to assist in improving the interrogation of the detainees in the war on terrorism, did you ever reach out for tactics or information that were based on unique cultural characteristics or phobias or fears of the kinds of people we were likely to be detaining in the war on Islamist terrorism?
No, Senator. My request was just send me everything you have. Whatever you have in existence in your library, please send to me.
Right.